Hi, I'm David with EV World News, where we talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm back here today with our chief editor and founder, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
It is going very good. Thank you for asking.
All right. Yeah, we missed on Thursday. I was traveling, and at the same time, we'd had that horrendous storm on Wednesday night.
I had lots of brush to clean up.
That was really freak. What we have was it just 80-mile-per-hour straight line winds, or was it
We
100?
had, yeah, here in Papillion, the weather service said they were 80-mile-an-hour winds here. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you have any damage over your way, or your tree's big
just
enough
just
over
some
there?
branches. I had a couple of bags of recycling stuff sitting by the side of the house that I was going to put out for recycling, um, and one of them vanished.
Yeah.
I, I mean, it was a big plastic bag full of recycling stuff, and there was two of them, and one of them was by my front door, kind of,
It's,
and
it's
another one just vanished.
yeah, it's somewhere in Kansas now.
Yeah, I went looking for it through the neighborhood, and
Yeah.
I don't know where it ended up. Somebody got a free bag of recycling. Not that
Yeah. There you
it's going to
go.
make them rich,
Well,
because
it cracked my apple tree, so I've actually right over there. I got a whole wheelbarrow full of apples. Would you like some pie apples? I've got lots.
oh,
And
I
then it
might, I
and then it
might.
took yeah, then it took my pear tree out, which was the very first year it had Bartlett pears on it, and it just snapped it off. So
Yeah. Well, we've really had some freaky weather. We've had at least five unusual weather incidents
yep, yep,
since winter ended. So
yes.
I mean, we've had four hails, and then and that
Yeah,
was
this is what like our third windstorm with very damaging winds. Besides, well, of course, then we had the tornado up in
yeah. Well, those other ones had hail
northeast
with them
Omaha.
too.
Yeah,
So I was thinking about the hail coming
yeah.
with them, but this one didn't have hail. But man, you figure a huge percentage of the city still doesn't have power. I'm not sure what it's like 10% at least of the city, maybe
Oh
more,
yeah, I
still doesn't
know.
have power.
This was just for people listening in. We had a record number of people lose power, over 200 and I think it was 216 or 217,000 people without power because of that storm.
Yeah.
Fortunately, here the lights flickered a few times and things, and we were down in the basement, obviously. We've had power all the time, but a whole lot of people in the town, and some are still without power. It
Yeah,
drove
I
me
had power
nuts.
just flicker off a couple times,
Yeah,
and but we've had it. Bellevue, all the street lights were out in
that
it on
way.
Thursday. Yeah,
Yeah,
out east, and yeah, for me, Bellevue is over that way.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, um, so today we're going to cover what's the average life of a hybrid car's battery. So we're not talking about necessarily a full EV, hybrids. We're going to talk a little bit about a humorous Cadillac story. We're going to talk about where the price of EV batteries has gone,
Yeah.
and some new rebate programs in the state of Washington. And we talk about a potassium-ion battery tech. And so we've seen a lot of it. So let's start out with talking about what's the average life of a hybrid car's battery. Now, a hybrid could be one that is just a combination gas electric engine that doesn't plug in any way, right? Is that
Right.
generally
And
what we're
that's
looking
what the
for here?
definition is here. Yes. Yep.
So in the story here, they actually
Basically, it's
show,
a Prius and that class of car.
yeah, well, the funny thing is in the story, they show a picture of a Jeep. And I know that Jeep has made some plug-in hybrid
Uh,
Wranglers.
Yeah, this is not the plug-in hybrids. This is just the straight Priuses, Prius
Okay,
class vehicle. Yeah.
so the warranty can tell you a little bit on how long the company. I don't know if that's really true. I mean, you don't warranty a car for 36,000 miles thinking it's going to go kaput after 36,000 miles.
Right.
In the car dealership model, the dealers need you to come back for repairs at some point. So if the warranties are too long, the dealers don't make money.
Well, that too, and there is legitimate servicing that needs to be done. I mean, lots of friction and lots of oil buildup and all that kind of thing. That fluids that need to be after so long need to be replaced. So there are legitimate things that, that needs to be done, although oftentimes dealerships take advantage of that situation. So
Now, I know on plug-in hybrids and full battery electric vehicles, you have a minimum 8 years or 100,000 miles
yeah.
on the batteries. This article is saying that doesn't apply to hybrid batteries.
No, you know
But
what? And I don't, I mean, I've owned two hybrids. I owned one of the first production models of the Honda Insight when it came out in 2000, which had to have its battery replaced, by the way, and under warranty. And then we have our Prius, which had its original battery removed and replaced with a larger pack to make it a relatively short-range plug-in. Back before Toyota and other companies started getting serious about that technology, and we had since taken that battery out and had it replaced with a fairly newly rebuilt battery. So yeah, but I don't recall what. That's a good question. I don't recall what the warranty was on the original.
According to this Car and Driver article, manufacturers generally provide at least an 8-year, 100,000 mile coverage for the hybrid systems, including the battery pack. Toyota goes all the way to 10-year, 150,000 miles, and Hyundai does 10-year, 100,000 mile duration, the same that applies to its non-hybrid powertrains. These warranties are generally transferable to subsequent owners, so you would probably be covered if you buy used. Let's see, what can cause a hybrid battery to fail? Exposure to extreme temperatures during operation or while stationary can take a toll on battery life. Keeping the vehicle out of the sun in a temperate garage can help the battery last longer. Try to avoid accidents. That's a good one.
Yeah, try to avoid.
Just
Most
a good
of these
rule
cars,
of thumb.
yeah, most of the batteries in the in something like a Prius is, it's not really that big. It's maybe, if you can see it's maybe about that long and about that wide and about that deep. And it generally sits underneath the back seat of the car.
Yeah. Now, it's not considered generally safe to take a hybrid car and drive it off a cliff like you can with an electric car.
Yeah, but remember, I mean, these batteries, the batteries in at least from my era, the batteries that I'm familiar with from the first generation hybrids, those are they're not even 2 kilowatt hours. They're I think the Prius was 1.3 kilowatt hours, something like that. So yeah,
wow, that is really tiny.
Yeah, they're. I mean, relative. I mean, with today's hybrid or with today's EVs, that whole floor plan, from basically the front firewall all the way back to the end of the back seats before you get to the trunk of the car, and then the width of the car, from side panel to side panel. That's all battery, and that can be, roughly that thick, 6-8 inches thick or more. So. That's completely from 1.3 kilowatts to 30, 40, 50, 60 kilowatts. So considerable difference. But
right.
I should point out with my Insight, I think I had maybe what was it? It wasn't more than maybe 15,000 miles on it or something, when that battery pack in that car failed. And so I had to have it towed over to the Honda dealer, but it was under warranty, so they gave it a brand new battery pack. And then I drove it. I think I drove that thing about 10 years and then sold it to a guy in Newfoundland.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so then we replaced that with a Prius that had been a salvage car that had had been in a front end collision. And there's a guy in Indiana who specialized in buying those cars and then restoring them and selling them. So I got a car that I think it had 15, maybe it was 1,200 miles on it, and we got it for like, what was it, $15,000, something like that. and look brand new, you know. And of course, we've driven that car ever since. But we did replace the battery pack in that, and the second battery pack that we replaced in that car was I think that cost me about $3,000 to do that, you know, to do that. So.
Well, the article went on to say there's not a comprehensive study on hybrid battery longevity. Educated guesses land between 100,000 and 200,000 miles. But you know, people buy used Priuses all the time and drive them 300,000-400,000 miles.
Yeah.
So
it's well, the thing is that that battery pack is really only, I mean, it's constantly being recharged because the gasoline engine, if you've driven a Prius and you set the right screen, it shows you how the electricity moves back and forth between the generator on the car and the battery pack, or from the battery pack to the car. And it's moving back and forth constantly. So it's not like you're driving an electric car and you're taking the voltage down from 100 to 10%, whatever, and then getting it home and then, or charging it somewhere. It's constantly being recycled and recharged and used, not to the complete depth, only to that, you know, depth to charge it needs for the acceleration from the stoplight, things like that. So it's a much different charging cycle. And yeah, so it could, and then most of those are now, Nick, I don't know if they've changed over yet, but at least the cars I'm familiar with, I'm showing my age here, are all nickel metal hydride, and those have really had a sterling longevity cycle to them. Not like the higher power lithium batteries, but they were designed for this other drive cycle, and they've done really well.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk about the Cadillac ELR article. It's funny, we talk about this car all the time because it's an anomaly of a car, folks. If you've never seen this before, this is a 2014 Cadillac ELR. It's a plug-in hybrid that was way before its time. It had no business coming out in 2014. It should have come out in like 2022. Okay, but anyways, they released it only in 2014 and 2016. So it was only 2 model years. There's only about 3,000 cars ever made.
Yeah.
And these were over $75,000. And the person that posted this Craigslist ad for this one claimed that theirs was optioned up over $100,000 when they bought it.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're asking this weird price of $16,757. Now, what they don't go on into the article. So this is an EV, or a plug-in hybrid, that's eligible for the $4,000 tax credit if you buy it from a dealer. If you go searching on Google, you can find dealers that will assist you for about $200 in doing the $400,000, or the $4,000 deal. And so you can get it. So what would happen is the dealer technically buys it from that individual and sells it to you, and they make $200 off of it.
Now, what I'm wondering is that, you know, let's say this thing has been through a couple of different owners. The first owner, of course, there was no comparable rebate program for that car back when. So the first used owner would get the $4,000. Would the second used owner get? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I don't think that keeps going on and on and on. I don't think you can keep going and playing games like that. So,
but I shared this I came across this over the weekend, and I shared it with Dave because I know he's curious about this car, and I keep expecting him to drive up to my house in one, but he hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of use for a two-door.
Oh, okay.
But it is interesting. This article, I'm not sure if it gets into the interior, because the ELR and the Chevy Volt share a lot of similarities.
Basically, it's the same platform. It is.
Well, yeah, the same motor and maybe the same chassis, but other than that, there's nothing else is the same. The interior is completely different.
Oh, well, yeah, it's Cadillac.
And there's the interior. I mean, it's really nice. Has a really tiny back seat. Let me see if it has a picture of the back seat.
It's probably a lot.
There
like
it is.
A lot like. Oh no, that's about like my Fiat.
Yeah. I mean, tiny back
Except
seat.
I can get three people in my back seat. I don't have that console going down the middle. By the way, that console is where the battery, part of the battery is located. In the Volt, it's a T-type situation. So you have the lower part of the T is running through the console between the seats. And then once you get behind the seats, there's the top part of the T. So that's why the car is designed like that.
So this guy's car is only a 14. The 16s, I see people buying them occasionally and talking about getting warranty work done on the battery because the battery is only 8 years old on the 16s, but the 14s would be a little too old.
Yeah.
But for the battery warranty, but still, so this car, if you did what I was saying, got the 4,000, you'd be just under $13,000 buying this car that was $75,000 new. I think this particular one has 88,000 miles on it, but it's a good
just
looking
getting
car.
broken in. Yeah, just getting
Yeah,
broken in.
and in this case, this has a 37-mile battery, so you can drive for 37 miles as an EV, and then after that, you got about a 300 miles as a gas car if you needed it, if you needed the range.
Yeah, GM picked me up in one of the early Volts at the Detroit airport, and they said, "Okay, let's see how far you can drive this in EV mode." So we drove from the airport, Detroit Metro Airport, to the GM campus, and I think we did most of that in EV only mode. This was years ago, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is pretty fascinating. Let's talk about our new potassium-ion battery technology. So we've talked about, so currently, there's lithium-ion, there's LFP, which is lithium iron phosphate.
Right.
Then there's the sodium-ion batteries that Cattle's working on to bring to market. Well, we know they're actually producing them. So this new one is potassium-ion.
Yeah.
Did you look at this article much?
Yeah, I looked it up and I tried to learn a little bit about the chemistry. There are issues. I mean, the main advantage here with this battery, of course, is that potassium is a much more readily available mineral than lithium. So that means that we can basically they can bring the cost down. I mean, not that lithium's a huge part of the cost of a battery because there's all the other pieces and components that drive the cost up, but it is a factor to bring it down. And the energy density is comparable for that is comparable to the lithium ferrous, the LPF batteries. So, or LFP batteries, lithium phosphate batteries. So
I remember from a movie, Barat, that the best place for potassium is Kazakhstan.
Well,
I don't know if that was really true, but that was part of the movie.
Well,
that was in the Kazakhstan national anthem he made up.
Well, I failed to ask Pi this morning. Where is where is the most abundant source of potassium? Right?
Yeah.
It's probably seawater. And you probably you can get it out of the soil. We just simply train the microbes to process it, and we could probably do it that way. But it is interesting. It hasn't been completely commercialized, but apparently it's getting pretty close. There's a whole bunch I think they're working on a thing called potassium silicate, which can solve some of the problems with. Apparently, the deal is with potassium, the ions are larger than the ions associated with lithium. So it's a little more difficult for them to move between the cathode and the anode. But they have come up with this. I believe it's an Iranian American researcher that's come up with a way called potassium silicate, which will allow the ions to move more freely between the two. And of course, then you get the cost advantage. So there's so much that we still don't know about how to make this chemistry work best, and we're continuing to learning. But it looks like potassium could be a way to overcome some of the problems associated with lithium.
So, Anyways, what I found kind of fascinating about this article is this tech is coming out of Texas, so it's a U.S. based,
Yeah,
um, you know, invention, and because usually we see all this stuff coming out of China for the most part,
a lot of
and
that
so
research is coming out of Asia. Sure is. Yep.
yeah, and I'm always worried when it's these Asian companies that they'll be able to get funding. If it's Cattle or LG, we know that they can put the money behind it, but this Texas company, Group One, I guess my question is, have they done well raising money so that they can
Uh,
actually bring it to market? That's
that's
always
that's
my question on so much of this.
that's your specialty. That's why you are where you are.
Yeah, I know, but I have doubts because I see how big of a struggle it is. This is a thing, love him or hate him. Um, People are willing to put money behind Musk because, he did PayPal and he did some other company before he went into Tesla and then SpaceX and, the Boring Company and all these other things he keeps
Hmm.
doing. And people know that he's able to execute. And that's one of the things, you get a lot of brilliant people who might have this great potassium ion battery, which could be completely groundbreaking, but whether they can bring it to market or not is a challenge. They both have to have somebody who's good at fundraising and good at executing a business plan, not just
as
somebody who's a
as
scientist. And that's a
as well
challenge to have
as
all of that wrapped up.
exactly, and as well as engineering, manufacturing engineer, whatever it is, expertise to actually bring all those pieces together so that they can be built safely and efficiently and at speed. We don't know that yet, although the one company apparently is doing them in the 1850 size cells. So we shall see. It's interesting technology, and I love to watch how this develops. That graph, by the way, that you're bringing up there, that's an interesting graph because it shows that the potassium battery has pretty much all of the things that we'd like to see in a battery going forward.
So the interior one here, white, is the lithium ion. The
Mm-hmm.
blue is a sodium ion, and the
Yep.
green is
The green on the
potassium
outside,
ion.
it's got a lot of good things about it. Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, it's nice because it's according to the article, their technology wouldn't require a
No,
manufacturer to retool. They
that's right.
simply are swapping out one chemistry for the other.
Yep.
Um, so that's a big thing if it's really successful. What I don't get in the article is how it compares energy wise to the energy density and the
Oh, it's
potassium
on.
ion
Yeah,
versus lithium.
it's on the graph there you're looking at. Yeah, if you
Okay,
look at that graph carefully, you'll see that it's got. That's what I like in the upper. I think it's the energy density is up in the upper right hand corner of that
the
graph.
volumetric energy, watt
Yep.
hours per.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so it's only slightly less than lithium ion, and it's almost tied.
Yeah, it's
And
in the
then
same from what the article says. It's in the same class as lithium ferrous phosphate. So
yeah, it really doesn't look like it has any disadvantages unless you're better off being in the middle. That's the thing I'm not quite sure about.
no, the further out, I think, if I'm reading it correctly, the further out on that graph, the better.
Okay. Well, anyways, it's interesting to see because we keep seeing so many different battery technologies coming to the market,
Yeah.
and and I think there's probably room for all of them to survive. It's not like the battle between EVs and hydrogen. This is
Yeah,
more like all the
I
EVs could be
yeah,
powered by completely different batteries. Because right now you see the LFP or the lithium ion in cars now, and the advantage of LFP is it doesn't have certain critical minerals like cobalt.
right, and it's less prone to catch fire.
Yeah, and if you use these other ones don't catch fire, and if you use those, then that poor kid who's mining the cobalt in the Congo is going to starve to death. Okay,
Well,
so just keep that in mind. Some poor child in the Congo is going to starve to death because he can't go out and mine cobalt anymore. Yeah, I had somebody actually comment on that on one of the videos about my libertarian views on, whether we should not let the kid mine or and let him
it,
starve to death.
yeah, that's, I mean, to be honest with you, that I don't want the kids having to do that.
Right,
I prefer them to be in, to be in a school and learning and educating and,
right,
expanding the horizon beyond living a life of destitution and poverty and probably at some point criminalized, into some, left wing communist guerrilla group,
right,
that'll, you know, do nothing constructive. So I have, by
right.
the way,
No,
I've been doing a lot of research on the Cuban Revolution. Yesterday, I spent a fair amount of time reading State Department memos and telegrams and things like that during the critical point between 1958 and 1959 for a project
mhm.
that I'm working on. So I'm really diving deep into the whole, what happens when you get a bunch of upset leftists against a bunch of corrupt fascists, how that comes into clash. And
Well, I'm
it's a
sure you had a lot of that when you had the English, because the English were basically bankrupt after World War II, and they started abandoning all their colonies, and then you had massive power struggles, and so many of the former, UK colonies.
right.
Oh,
But Cuba represents in it because they've went through one revolution, which was the Spanish Civil War,
hmm,
that we assisted them in freeing them
right,
from Spain, so they become one of our unofficial dependencies. And then, of course, through a whole series of one dictator after another dictator after another dictator, finally culminating in, Castro. So yeah,
it
anyway,
makes you wonder.
that's yeah, completely off.
Yeah, we're getting off topic. Not unusual, folks. Sorry for that. We tend to ramble, but anyways, so I wanted to talk about this thing about EV batteries, and it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I thought they were going to talk about how EV battery packs have dropped in price and they've cut in half in the last like 2.5 years. And
Yeah, but go back to 2008 when they were $1,400 a kilowatt hour, and now they're 116. I think the article said something like that. So yeah,
yeah,
they've come down dramatically. In fact, I just saw an article yesterday that says that battery electric cars will be there as early as next year or 2026, one of those, that they will be price competitive with gasoline cars
right.
because of
But
this dramatic drop in battery costs.
so generally what we're seeing right now, it's expected that by about 2026, the battery prices will have cut in half again from where they're at now. I don't know if this article addresses this, but it just gets,
That's a pretty steep drop right there. So it's starting to
yeah,
looks like it's starting to level out a bit.
yeah, but it's still going down.
Yep.
And um, it's just shocking to see how much they go down, because people are always talking about, they heard about somebody who had a $50,000 or $60,000 battery replacement or something like that. I've seen some stuff where somebody went and got a Tesla battery replaced out of warranty for like $6,000.
Oh,
So it really depends on the battery and the situation, and generally they're more like 11 or $12,000, but that's still not the 30 or $60,000 everybody seems to think that they are. And it just makes me think that in another 3-4 years, those battery replacements are going to run $3,000 to $5,000.
yeah, it'll be interesting. The problem with the Tesla batteries is if you watch any of Sandy Monroe's videos, you see that you can get the battery pack out of the car, right? And but when it comes to starting to take the battery apart, so he can do his engineering analysis. They use some glues and some foams and things in there that really, really makes it hard to successfully take that battery apart. So I don't know whether, with the my battery, for example, the in the in the Prius that I replaced, a recycler can take any of those batteries, take them apart, individually test the cells, take the ones that are not up to standards or maintain their charge, which is only a handful generally. And then you can take the rest of the cells, which are still pretty good, and you can put those in a new cell and then resell that to guys like me who needed to replace the battery in my car. And that apparently is going to be, given their current procedures with a Tesla pack, that may be difficult to achieve. So I don't know what's going to happen in that. And I think what we want to see at some point is engineering in those battery packs so that they can be reprocessed successfully and then either put into a storage for solar or something of that nature, or put back in used cars, so it doesn't cost you $12,000 or $15,000 to replace it, which is probably the value of the car anyway.
So our last article for today is talking about the state of Washington. So they just launched a new EV rebate program that's kind of similar to the federal one, and it's basically it's point of sale like the federal. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer the same as where you just get the money after a year later. Yeah. So anyways, where they've gone is they're offering 5,000 off new cars, but this is targeted a little bit to lower income people. So like the federal one has caps, like you have to make under $150,000 a year. On this one, I was looking, it's targeted to make full battery electric vehicles affordable for between 6,500 to 8,000 low income people. Now, the thing is, you got to find a cheaper EV, and ideally it'd be one that's eligible for the federal credit. It'd get you $7,500. The one for Washington isn't quite as restrictive as the federal, but they offer 5,000 off a new EV or 2,500 off a used at the time of purchase. You could add that 2,500 to 4,000 from the federal, and you're really talking a pretty significant discount. There are some like Chevy Bolts, things like that, Nissan Leafs, that a lot of them are fairly recent, that are in 12, that 12 to 15. Yeah, and you start taking $6,500 off of that, you're not talking a big car payment. You're talking, even if you financed it, maybe $150 a month for most people. And you're also talking the tax credits worked for your down payment, so you didn't have to come up with a bunch of cash to go buy the car.
And then you save on your fuel bill. You save on any future maintenance that period, the conventional wipers and car tires and things like that, of course. But the stuff that you normally have to go in, the checking and changing the oil and that type of thing, don't have to do that anymore. So those are savings there.
So what was interesting is they were offering 9,000 off on an EV lease. Now you can also, you could really get a deal if you were looking at, let's say, one of these new Chevy Equinox that's around $30,000. You got 9,000 on the lease there, plus the 7,500. You're only talking about $14,000 at least. I bet the lease probably be under $200. I can't imagine how cheap some of these leases have got to be doing that. They said you could lease a used EV and $2,500. I'm not sure how that one works. Yeah. It has to be a 3-year or longer lease. Let's see. At some point, they were talking about what you had to do.
What's the cap? What's the income cap? Does it stay?
Well, first of all, the price cap on the vehicle is $90,000, but somebody who falls into these price caps probably isn't going to be buying a $90,000
No,
car.
no, I wouldn't think so.
So it works out. You have
Highly
to be
imprudent.
300% or below of the federal poverty level, which should be 45,000 single. A household of 4 needs to make under 93.6.
Okay.
And to get
Which
the
of course in Washington is
not a lot of money.
not a lot of money. My
No.
daughter can speak from experience living there. So
Yeah, so they have a $50 million set aside for this that'll run through June of next year or until funds run out. So hurry out and go get your car out there.
Which will be like that.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I looked at that, that one in Colorado. It's like, I wonder if I go live in Colorado for a month and get their deal. So you never really know. It's helpful.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap it up here, we should point out that Vice President Harris has picked her running mate. Her running mate is Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who until 2006 was, or 2005 or 2006, is a native-born Nebraskan from West Point. Went to Chadron College, was a teacher, and for 28 years was in the National Guard and achieved the highest rank for a non-commissioned officer. So we now have a Nebraska boy on the ticket for the Democratic side of the presidential election. So I'm kind of excited about that because he is a really good guy, a social teacher. Oh, he was the football coach, which I think is interesting. The football coach for our local high school here, just 2 houses up. To have him now on the ticket and bring that Nebraska work ethic and philosophy of life and things like that to that ticket, I'm excited about it. I think that's great. So just happened this morning, and I of course had to immediately ask Pi, my favorite AI, what can you tell me about this guy? And it gave me a whole list of stuff too that I posted to my Facebook. I do have a Facebook page, folks. You get a link to it at the top of EV World if you're interested in following that.
All right. Well, that's interesting. It's probably a good choice. What was it? When Reagan ran against Mondale, Minnesota was the one state Mondale carried.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think he's gonna help her do more than that.
Well, maybe, you never know.
Keep the fingers crossed, but yeah.
It's funny. He went to Minnesota State University. I used to think that I remember it being called Mankato State. There used to be a TV show called Coach, and they talked about he was the coach of Minnesota State, and I always thought it was a joke, because it was like a non-existent college. Yeah. I didn't realize at one time Mankato was called Minnesota State.
Yeah.
So
guys had he's been deployed with the Guard. He was deployed overseas, and like I said, it reached the highest rank in the Army that you can get and not be a commissioned officer, as a non-commissioned person, I guess.
Like an E9 or something like that?
It was command sergeant, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah,
I like that. I mean,
he was a 6-term congressman from Minnesota.
Well, maybe they could swap her and Kamala, make him the presidential candidate. I might vote for him.
No. I want Kamala. I'm sorry. We're gonna politely disagree on that. The interesting thing is that they're pretty close to the same age.
Ah.
They're both, I think Kamala has just turned 60, and he is about or has already turned 60. So they're both in the mature adult stage, but they're not tottering, doddering old men.
Not like us.
You're not. I'm the old guy here.
I
You know
know.
what?
I'm not as old as these people running for president, but still.
I'm 2 years behind Trump. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you still seem to be all there.
who,
Yeah.
him or me?
I said you still seem to be all there for the most
Yeah,
part.
well, thank you. Other than we were having our earlier conversation about Lee Harvey Oswald, and I couldn't remember the guy's
Yeah.
name. You know,
Yeah, we were trying.
I remember, you know, like most people my age, I remember exactly where I was when they came into my high school room and said the president's been shot.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, so.
We should do another collaboration with the Red Pill News guy. Go on his channel and we can talk conspiracy theories on assassinations.
Oh yeah.
His
We
channel
got
would
it.
love that. His channel loves that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, I want to
Okay.
thank y'all for watching and appreciate the people who commented that I didn't ban. I banned somebody today in the chat. So I had never had to do that before. So I guess we're getting popular enough. Our reach is enough now that I have to start banning people for just being really poor
Well,
quality human beings.
yeah. Well, thanks for doing that. I was kind of chuckling at some of the comments that were coming through here, but most of them were
Yeah.
smiley. Most of them were
You know, the
smiley
thing
faces.
is, whoever that was would never say something like that, what they said, to my face.
No.
And because they know they'd get their ass beat.
Kind of like what Kamala said in her speech. Where was it? In Atlanta. If you have
Mhm.
something to say it to my face.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right. Hey,
You
thanks
have a
everybody.
saying, and you know what is the saying? Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks for watching today. Have a great week. We'll be back. I'll be back